That's tight. He's done.
That's over.
He's
He
done.
says he's done. There's the
Paul Felder was saying on the broadcast how it's like a different guillotine than he used the last time. Which one, like, what were you seeing there, and why did you just decide to go that way?
So this one is called the power guillotine because you don't have the arm, and I think it's the strongest guillotine in all my arsenal. Normally I would do a blood choke, which is a little bit different because I'm cutting the blood circulation, but this is that's the real guillotine because I'm cutting your head in half.
And you can use any of these guillotines from closed guard because you have such good connection of your hips to your partner's hips. I'm going to talk about which guillotines I prefer when I don't have the perfect connections and so on and so forth. But I'm just going to say the finishing mechanics for all the guillotines. I'm going to look at which are the preferred ones from given positions. Okay. This time we fall and we move into a position where I shoot my hand through and I'm able to go for a high elbow. This time instead of going for a high elbow, instead of raising my elbow, I lower my elbow and I switch to a pushing grip like so. I just physically make a fist. I grab the 5 fingers over the meat of my hand here, and now right from here, I'm going to start pushing my hand into my partner's neck and up towards the ceiling. So almost the diagonal in this direction. So the directionality of force is I'm almost pushing my hand towards my partner's far shoulder. And it's right below my partner's far shoulder, right in this direction here. As I do that, everything remains the same. Chin to chest, I bring the chest up to the chin by pulling my knees in, and then we get strong finishes. So we pull it into this position, and notice I want a strong connection of my wrist to the other side of my partner's neck. I push everything up. Now, right from here, I lock up, we can get strong finishes with a power guillotine. Okay? So instead of transitioning, we pull it across. Instead of transitioning over for a high elbow, maybe my partner pulls my elbow down. Instead of going to a low elbow, we switch to a power guillotine from here. So instead of switching to a low elbow, we still have the wrist high. As my partner pulls my elbow down, she reaches over, she pulls the elbow down, we switch right to a power guillotine, we get strong finishes with a power guillotine.
Guillotines. Let's look now at power guillotines. These involve a very direct coverage of your training partner's carotid arteries. As my straight line comes around, I turn my hand in, and instead of taking my hand high in a conventional 5-finger grip and pushing across like so, we take the low elbow and we physically join hands and push across like so. So that we get a very direct coverage of the second carotid artery and a very strong form of double closure. These kinds of strangles were made very famous by a guy who I taught in the Ultimate Fighter series when I coached alongside Jourdain. Cody McKenzie was a fascinating fellow who was on our team. He probably is the most famous exponent of this method of strangulation and was very proficient with it. Let's have a look at the details behind the power guillotine and why it represents an interesting addition to your guillotine arsenal. The way I personally like to use the power guillotine, because I'm not the most flexible person, Cody McKenzie had very flexible arms and very long, thin forearms, and as a result he could finagle his hands, and even with mixed martial arts gloves on, from a variety of positions. I like to do it from a high-risk situation. From any standard front hand lock we've seen, the center line shift gives us a good coverage of our training partner's carotid arteries. From here, we're just going to sit down to the floor and we're going to lock our hands palm to palm. Very unusual grip for guillotines. The standard grips for guillotines mostly involve other grips, but the most commonly seen forms are 5-finger grips, where 5 fingers grip the hand, sometimes the wrist, but usually the hand, just in like so. Here, we're locking thumbs involved, locked out like so. Okay? From this situation, I sit down towards the floor so that I can lock either one leg, even the wrong leg, and locking like so. It doesn't really matter, because in situations like this, both carotid arteries are very, very cleanly covered. Now, I physically push with power into the second carotid artery, and as a result, we get a very, very strong coverage of our training partner's 2 carotid arteries, and as a result, a very efficient stranglehold. Let's have a look at that sequence again. Going on the other side. From a different angle, we walk in on our training partner, and again, there's that fundamental movement of the head. It's that center line shift which makes it possible for me to sit down and go into a strong finishing position. Now, even if my opponent jumped over my legs now, it would mean nothing. Any kind of entanglement on my part, regardless of which leg it's on, we just take our hand and push our hand towards the back of the neck, and as a result, we get enormous strangulation power. One more time. Front headlock situation. Center line shift gives me a high risk position. From here, the 2 hands lock in. Okay. Now, wherever we fall, even disadvantageous situations, okay, where my opponent jumps over my legs like so, from here, I just push inwards, and the strangle power is immense. You can see that once I attain the high-risk position, all 5 of these forms of guillotine, high elbow, low elbow, arm in, one-handed, and this power guillotine, are all equally simple to use. It's very realistic for you, if you can reliably attain this high-risk position through the use of the center-line shift, moving the head across your opponent's center line, that you can be highly adept at many forms of guillotine with equal effect. And you can break that curse which has been following jiu-jitsu for so long. Most of the great guillotine masters tend to be very strong in one form of guillotine and one form only. It would be nice to see a generation of athletes come up who are equally adept in all the variations of guillotines, so that they can pick and choose the appropriate one for the given scenario that they're in. I think if you work on this high-risk position, you're going to find your finishing percentages go up dramatically, not just with one form of guillotine,